Hello, my name is Brian Condi. Super excited to be here today, and I'm glad that you're joining me. This is what's called a podcast short. It's exactly what that is. It's a short podcast. Won't take much of your time, but I promise you're going to learn a ton. This first podcast is about adding value. My podcasts will be stories, okay? Stories from my career, and I want to share them with you. And this first one is going to be about adding value. My dad, he was an insurance man his whole career. And before he retired, he was CEO of a life insurance company for 10 years here in Colorado. And as I was growing up, my dad would say to me as I was going to school and so forth, he'd say, Brian, one of the most important things that you can do is find ways to add value to the company. The company you're working for, find ways to add value. Don't just stay within what the job description says. But if you want to move up, you want to move around, you want to show leadership, you want to show initiative, then find ways to better the position you're in. Find ways to add value to the company. I thought about that for a long time. And over the years, I actually practiced that a lot. Ironic enough, in my first job out of college, I was working for a company called Ryder Truck Rental. Ryder Truck Rental, the big yellow trucks, same thing as U-Haul and Penske, whatever. Rental trucks, right? Well, Ryder Truck Rental was eventually bought by Budget, Budget Truck Rental. And there was a man there that I met, and he has been a mentor of mine now since for over 20 years. He used to work upstairs as the senior vice president of HR, and I would work downstairs. And there were times that he would come down and he would say to me, Condi, what did you do to add value today? And he'd go around and he'd ask other people the same question. What did you do to add value today? Now, this leader wasn't a tough leader. He wasn't a authoritarian leader. He was a good guy. And he really did want to know, what were you doing to help the company grow? What were you doing to help yourself grow? He wasn't just asking, what did you do to add value to the company? He was asking also, what did you do to add value to yourself? Okay. So when we were working, it's one thing to say, well, that's not my job. Well, I'm not going to do that. It's not my job. Well, that's baloney. When you're working for a company, you do have your primary job, but you also can take opportunities to find ways to do things more efficiently. Efficiency, right, is valuable, and you're adding value to the company, and you're adding value ultimately to yourself. Because whatever you found out that causes efficiency, that causes you to add value to the company, you've learned something. And that means you've added value to yourself. Now, learning means humility. To be humble means to be teachable. You're willing to be taught when you're humble. When you're prideful and you think you know everything about everything, you're not as willing to be taught, and you're a little bit harder to take things in and learn from others because you think you know everything. Well, nobody knows everything. There's always room for growth. There's always room for learning, and that learning can be applied to add value to where you work. Now, I want to give you an example. While I was at Budget Truck Rental, when I first started there, I had just graduated with a bachelor's degree in communications. And I thought to myself, Brian, what are you going to do to make a meaningful living with a communications degree? You're not going into radio. You're not going to TV. You're not going to journalism. What are you going to do? You're not going to go into public speaking, although I love public speaking. I do love talking to people. Well, when I was sitting in the training program for budget truck rental, I had an epiphany. No, my epiphany wasn't, hey, let's go be an astronaut, or hey, let's go do this grandiose thing. It was, I want to do what those guys do. What guys? I want to do what those trainers are doing that are teaching me how to be an inventory manager at Budget Truck Rental. I like what they're doing. That looks like fun. I want to do that. So I found out who the senior vice president of learning development was at Budget Truck Rental, and I sought him out. Why? Well, because I wanted to know how he got to where he was. What did he have to do? Meaning, what do I have to do? So I asked this individual, how do I do what you do? I want to do what you do. And he says, well, you need to start by getting a master's degree in instructional technology and distant learning. Go get your master's degree, come back and find me, we'll talk. All right. I went back to the University of Colorado, Denver, got a master's degree in instructional technology and distant learning, paid for by Budget Truck Rental. And I went back to find this guy. And Gonzo, him and all the other trainers that worked in Denver were let go. Bah, bah, bah. What? What do I do now? I have this degree. What do I do with it? Well, as it turns out, as I just said, everybody was let go that had anything to do with training or instructional design in Denver. Well, I was an inventory manager still. So I went and found that guy that I talked about earlier, the VP of HR, knocked on his door, and I said, hey, could I have a minute? He said, sure, come on in, have a seat. So I sit down and I say, look, it's unfortunate that all these people were let go because one, now they have to look for other work. Two, there's nobody doing instruction, there's nobody doing training or instructional design. There's nobody teaching the dealers how to be a dealer. There's nobody teaching inventory managers how to be inventory managers. There's nobody teaching dealer performance managers how to be dealer performance managers. Those were field people that took care of the dealers out in the field. I said, sir, why don't you let me resurrect these programs? Bring them back. I'll do it while I'm an inventory manager. I'll add to my duties and do it. And I laid out a plan for him on how I would do that, bring back these programs. I even laid out a plan for him about the distant learning lab that was located in Chicago with these computers that connected to the kiosks in dealerships, but was no longer being utilized. I said, why don't we bring that to Denver? Then we could train dealers right out of Denver. And I had a plan, and we executed on the plan. We tore down the mailroom and we rebuilt a learning distant lab. We bought all brand new computers and laptops that could be sent out to dealers all over the country who couldn't get to a kiosk for learning. And we rewrote the whole curriculum. And we rewrote the curriculum for inventory managers. And it was super, super great experience. It wasn't until maybe a year or so into doing this that they finally put me into a learning development position and took me out of inventory manager. The reason I tell you this story is because, one, I found something that I was passionate about, that I had found out about myself. And now I've been doing learning development for over 20 years. We'll get into that in another podcast short. The other thing is, I took initiative and I looked around and I found a way to add value to the company. But ultimately, not only add value to the company, I added value to myself. I went back and I got a degree, a master's degree. I put myself forward to help build the programs that were lost at Budget Truck Rental. And that was my launching point into where I am today, is that what are you doing to add value today? Well, thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. Complete the worksheet that's attached and reflect back on what you learned. What you learned today? And how does it apply to you? Talk to you soon.